I'm about to talk about the books that I hate, or at least I dislike, and you might have better suggestions for me in the comments. First up is The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. I went into this book with high expectations. This was before the official cover, and I thought the art edition cover was cute. I like this cover, I think it's cute. And when they talked about it, it felt like a more mature Harry Potter. I thought it was gonna be exciting, it was gonna be fun. It wasn't all of that for me. It felt more convoluted, it felt exhausting to read, it felt like a drag to read because how this book is written, which I feel is probably like a clever thing that Olivia Blake did with this book, is that it's dark academia. So I think the intent of the writing was supposed to feel like you're reading an academic text while also reading a story about being adults at this adult university style magic school. At first, when I started reading the book, the characters, their backstory, where they were coming from, it was interesting. I was getting into it. I felt like some of the characters were giving like a little Upper East Sider kind of vibe. And then this one character, he was married to the daughter of this cosmetics company, but his wife was sleeping with his best friend who works at the company behind his back. It was giving magical soap opera because the cosmetics company, a magical cosmetics company, it was gonna be juicy, it was gonna be interesting. And baby, it feels like wasted potential, wasted opportunity. It felt like it could have gone that way, and it said, never mind, that's not what we want to do. It felt like the Magician's TV show. I didn't really like the show that much, or at least I didn't like the lead character, and I didn't like that lead girl, the one with the blonde with the glasses. I didn't like neither one of their characters. I felt like his character was more a self-insert of the writer of the book or the creator of the show. He just felt so obnoxious, kind of drab and boring. I liked every other character, and I felt like a lot of those character types were what was in this book. This feels like The Magician's fan fiction, but it just wasn't fun enough to even be fan fiction. And then close to the end, some real interesting plot, fun things happened where there's one chapter where we were time jumping. I was excited by this. That one chapter makes me want to read, or at least I want to know what happens in the other two books after this, but I don't feel like reading this tedious writing. This small font, I just really love the concept of a magical soap opera, and I felt like this could have been that. And you know what? Maybe Olivia Blake is not the girl to write that. She just doesn't want to write that, and that's fine. Maybe I should write it, you know? And I love that they had like the little illustrations of the characters in here. I thought that was very cool. I enjoyed that a lot. I need to write a magical soap opera. I just have to figure out how I'm gonna write it, but I need to write that. I need to write it, but yeah, I hate this book. Next up is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Another book I went into with high hopes. I was down for the premise because it was the son of the president of the United States of America, the prince of England, and they fall in love with each other. Oh, that sounds exciting. A romance, high profile romance. I was here for it, and it's gay. Like, yes, 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 I need this. This is what I want. I want to read this. It's a 400-page novel that has only 15 chapters. That's like about 26, 27 pages per chapter. And I was not satisfied, and I was bored. It wasn't juicy enough. It wasn't exciting enough. There wasn't even a sex scene. Like, how you got 400 pages of a novel and that is 15 chapters and there was not a lot of sex in it? It wasn't deeply romantic to me either. The thing that I really hated about this story was we only got the POV of the president's son, and we did not also get the prince. I think that made the book even more tedious. I didn't like the president's son that much. The more I got to know his character, the more I didn't like him. I get it. He's not supposed to be perfect. He don't need to be perfect. But he was just not that interesting. I wouldn't even say not that interesting. He just wasn't that likable to be that interested in. His mom is the president and he wanted to be up in politics, and I feel like that political plot on the sideline, it felt unnecessary because it didn't fully tie into the romance. Girl, I don't really care about this romance. 400 pages of Alex for 15 chapters. Didn't like that. I did love his friends and his family. I love those aspects of the story. I felt like there wasn't enough high profile in it for me. There was a few times of Twitter messages and tabloid stuff and them going out to like fancy events. There wasn't enough paparazzi for me and blogs, tabloid fodder. There was enough of that for me. 15 chapters for 400 pages. 400 pages of one perspective. And this is all we getting? Maybe I should do a reread of it and see how I feel about it on a second go around, but nah. This was a drag. They could have kept this. Or I could have just not read it. Next up, The Dreamers by Gilbert Adair. I read this twice. The first time I read it for a Black Gay book club that I was a part of. And then the second time I read it was to give it a second chance. Let me see how I feel about it. And then also, that was before I watched the movie. If shit could shit. Here's an example of two quotes that I did not like in this book. First up, his pubic hair was dark, silky, and unfrizzy, like that of an Oriental. His testicles were two gray gooseberries. His penis, which was circumcised, was small, almost, but not quite abnormally small, and so plump and round as to resemble, rather, a third testicle. A charming thing, which, no sooner had one set eyes on it, one felt like tenderly cupping between one's palms like a throbbing little sparrow. Ew. Next, its moth-eaten fur looked as though it had been woven out of the pubic hair of 1,000 Filipino houseboys. But it had great quotes that I did like for instance, unhappiness may lie in our failing to obtain precisely the right sort of happiness. And then there was this quote that was used in the movie, if shit could shit, it would smell just like your friend Jacques. Yeah, I felt like the movie was kind of gross, but this book was also gross too. So they're both like gross in their own ways, but the movie was kind of funny for me. It was funny. There was a scene in this book. They were playing a game. I think it was like a truth or dare kind of game, and the brother lost, and basically he had to masturbate in front of them. And I was just like, girl, what? The reason why the book is called The Dreamers is because they all love movies, and there was a bunch of civil unrest that was happening outside of their home at the time. They lived in France, so they were shut up inside of the house playing out a whole bunch of movie scenes in their heads with each other, playing a whole bunch of games with each other, living in a like dream state in this apartment. They were disconnected from reality and started doing like weird gross shit like eating out the dumpster. I hate this book. Next up is Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens by Tonya Betejou. I saw the cover, and the cover was just giving me Paris is Burning vibes. It just felt like very Paris is Burning-esque, very 80s underground cool. And when I read it, I was thoroughly disappointed. This book was far from very Paris is Burning, very Pose, very slay the house down queen, boots to the floor. It was giving none of that. It kind of gave a little bit of that. There was a black drag queen in there. It was suburban-y. It was very small town. There was a circus involved. Or was it a country fair? Or like a fair? I don't know, girl. And apparently it was all, there was, oh no, there was also a little bit of frat house energy that happened. I didn't like the lead character. I thought she was so bratty and obnoxious and so, she got on my nerves. She got on my nerves real bad. I was just like, ugh. I think she was 17. She was about to graduate, and her love interest that she met, who was a part of the fair, was at least 20, 21. She had to be somewhere in that age range, I feel, because she was bringing liquor for this girl, and had this girl sitting up in a hot tub with other, I'm assuming early 20-something-year-olds, drinking beer in their underwear in a hot tub. I was just like, girl, what are we doing here? What are we talking about here? You know what? I'm sounding like the purity police, but like, girl, what the fuck are we talking about here with this book? Because Miss Little Brat over here, she wanna think she grown or something. I don't know what the fuck she thought she was doing, because she was dealing with not having her mother in her life. I was just so annoyed by how she handled that, because she went over to this other lady's house and started throwing her plants down and like breaking the pots and stuff like that. I get it, she's 17, so she's acting out. But it's like, girl, go back to your father's house. Go back to your daddy's house and go eat your curried pancakes. Eat your curry on your pancakes, because you're so quirky. Another thing that I really did not like the most is that the black drag queen was advising her and taking care of her. The black drag queen had her up in her house, had this little girl up in her house, like taking care of her. I was like, so you're using the magical Negro trope with this black drag queen to take care of this bratty ass girl? Get her up out of my face. Get her up out of my face. I felt so bad that she was doing all that. I get it that the black drag queen had a backstory and to give a little bit more fleshing out to her character, but I didn't like it. That little girl, she could have figured it out a different way. She could have gone back to her own daddy and let your daddy figure that shit out for you, girl. I don't see it for you. I don't see it for your daddy. I don't see it for your mama. I don't see it for your love interest. She kind of got on my nerves. I hate this book. Next up is How to Succeed in Witchcraft by Aislinn Brophy. With a cover like this, and with a title like this, I thought, oh, this book is going to be interesting. And I think the only interesting thing about this story I felt like was the world building, because it was kind of set in a world that was like ours. Everything in the world was magical. Everybody and everything in the world, I assume, was magical. There would be magical corporations, magical HBCUs, magical magazines. People would drive magical cars throughout the air. There was Starbucks and McDonald's in it, but everything was just magical. So I thought that was kind of interesting for the world building, and that had me intrigued. But then it's like the plot and the story itself, it was very unclear what was going on at times. I don't even remember exactly how the story ended. Maybe I need to do a reread, and I'll see how I feel about it on a second read, because I thought the world was interesting, but I felt like the story itself just fell flat. It wasn't as engaging and as exciting. The fact that I forgot how it ended, was it really that good of a story? Was it just made just to exhibit the world? The main character in the story, she was biracial with a black mom. Her black mother actually didn't want her to wear her natural hair because it's just more manageable that way or something. I was just like, what's up with your black mama? Because it made me think of Married at First Sight, when that biracial girl with the black mom was on the show. I was thinking that her black mother only hangs out with white women from the suburbs. That's that specific kind of white woman that goes to Walmart, has a minivan, wears like those pedal pushers with those floral tops and espadrilles. Very middle class suburban white woman in the middle of the middle class white woman. The reason why you probably don't know how to do your black daughters here is because you're giving white woman. You're giving white woman as a black woman. You're giving white woman as a black woman. Like, that's it. And I also have to understand that as a black person, I can't expect you, even as a black woman with a black daughter, to know how to do your black daughter's hair, because as black people, we are not a monolith. So I understand. Maybe you don't know because you have a different life experience. But also, girl, how did you do your hair? You just really always straighten your hair, girl? And then how did you know with straightening your hair how to take care of your hair so that it doesn't break off or break apart or have split ends or just be unmanageable? Girl, how do you not know? Okay, girl. Your whole mama black. She just don't know how to do your hair? Okay, girl. Yeah, sure, fine. Maybe I'll give it a second chance, but in the current moment, I hate this book. And next up, Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I read this twice. The first time I read it, I was in high school when I read it. I knew that it was a story about like two gay men and it was written by a black man. I think I'd already read B-Boy Blues, so I wanted to read something in that vein. I started reading it and I was a little bored because I was like, where's the sex? Where's the sex and the romance? It just wasn't giving me that as a teenager. And then the second time, for the black gay book club that I was a part of, I read it, and that's when I realized, is our narrator a white man? Is he a white man? And his love interest is a white man. I mean, not that his love interest being a black man would have made it any better for me. They're both white. It's two white men? That turned me off of this book. I finished reading the book in the end, but why am I reading about two white men falling in love? Or whatever they're doing. Girl, I don't want that. I don't read about that. And I get that when it was written, it was a different time. From what I've learned, like the reason James Baldwin wrote about two white men is that it would have been more acceptable and easier to sell a book like that. It wouldn't have worked if it was like a black man involved. Hearing how other people talk about the book and the themes and the things that they got out of the book, now it's got me thinking, okay, I'm gonna give the book one more read, see how I feel about it. Do I hate it still? But for now, I pretty much still hate this book. I still have to read more James Baldwin. I actually plan on reading Just Above My Head. From what I read as a synopsis, it sounds juicy, it sounds very soapy, very much my style, and then it's also like black characters, so there might be a black gay man in there. Basically, I hate these books. At least I'll give some of them a shot, a second try. I already read two of them twice. So who's to say I can't read the other ones one more time just to be sure? Do I really like it or do I dislike it? Thank you for spending your time with me. And I'm out this bitch like Fleek. Shout out to Peaches. Thank you, girl.